Hello everybody. Now we all know Jay, you know, miss, screen time deficient, workaholic, no nonsense, strictly loyal company shill. Well, maybe scratch the last part out. Turns out in episode 8 she had known all along she was working under Sin, and remembered everything, including Tessa's death at Sin's hands. And yet, the last thing I thought would happen was Jay teaming up with Tessa's murderer. Jay is one of my favorite characters, even if the show does very little with her. However, I do think they did give us some reasons for her teaming up with the child Skinner. I would totally agree the premise they went with has a lot of room for improvement, and is also not what I personally want out of the show considering what was coming up, but what they went with wasn't horrible. In fact, it does have some stuff to dissect, and with the limited number of people in my life that want to listen to my insane rants, I'll turn to good old YouTube to rant about the screen time deficient robot disassembler. Now, context. I feel here is a good time to tell you to watch the show. If you for some reason never heard of murder drones, how'd you get on this video? Did you fall asleep and leave the autoplay on? Watch the show, then come back if you haven't. The video won't leave. I'll wait. Anyway, for all those enlightened in the show's knowledge, let's recap Jay's run in the one and, probably, only season of the funny robot killing show. Jay started off life as a regular worker drone. Just like N, V, and Sin, Jay was thrown out by her former owners into a junk heap, as they are marked for disassembly. Armbands are only given to drone that are marked for disassembly. So, Jay was found in the junk heap of broken drones, by Tessa. Jay in just another one of the drones Tessa rescued, as it was her hobby. Tessa would give her hair, and probably the maid uniform to humanize her. From what we can gather by her screen time as a maid, she's pretty consistent to how she is in the show's present, workaholic, fiercely loyal, and a hatred for N. However, there's one scene that gives Jay at least some depth.
On you go. I'm right, Jay.
This scene shows Tessa rubbing and wincing in pain, as Jay shows sympathy to her with a concerned look. In fact, Tessa herself has to tell Jay everything was alright. This isn't noticed by anyone, but Tessa, so that shows that Jay seems to really care for Tessa. Tessa humanizes Jay, and makes her more likable due to her caring for someone other than herself, without being opportunistic, or gaining something out of it. Life in the mansion would continue until the fateful day of the gala massacre. When Sin said to stay away from the gala, Jay would agree to help Tessa fight Sin. However, the little silly would possess Jay and then she massacres everyone in the gala. Jay then was Sin's puppet for the rest of Earth's existence, being turned into a disassembly drone to clear the planet, so Sin can destroy it. Also, important to know, she has admin rights over all disassembly drones. Meaning she can take them over directly at any time. I don't think Sin gave Jay her free will until Earth was gone. I'll come back to this later. Anyway, for the main plot, Jay does make some sort of off-screen deal with Sin after the destruction of Earth, that if they did their job on Copper 9, Sin would leave Jay, V, and N alone. Jay would later tell this to V, and that kinda kick-started her whole persona of being a sassy murderous psycho. I may cover that in another video, before I go on a tangent about V. On another note, Jay then becomes V and N's boss. She leans in hard, really hammering it into N that he's useless and terrible, making him have big self-esteem issues. So, then things stay like that for like 18 years, more or less, as the body count ticks up. Things change when N meets Uzi. Specifically, when he questions the quote-unquote company's orders. Jay uses this as her opportunity to take out N. I don't have an explanation why, other than she just hates N. She says it's to prevent N from being corrupted, by assumedly the solver, so it could be that Jay doesn't want N to be infected by it. But it still feels contradictory, given they are on the same team, with N being unaware of that, of course. If any of you have a better idea, please say so. Anyway, N and Uzi fight V and J, with N taking on V, and J taking on the emo toaster. However, due to J not taking Uzi seriously, the emo grape blasts J into next week. Nothing really happens to her. Eldritch J is just the solver trying to rebuild J, with J either backseating in her own mind, or not conscious at all, and I probably think the latter happened. She comes back as a clone at the end of episode 3, with quote-unquote Tessa. She does nothing in 4, I already went over what happened in 5. So we skip to 6. She does nothing, but does have one notable moment. When Tessa said J, mind my ship, J looks at the ship's keys and falters for a moment. I'll come back to this later. In episode 7, she doesn't do much, just showing up to destroy any way off the planet with the space pod that the main 3 disassembly drones came in. So we skip ahead to her role in episode 8. She was firmly on the side of the solver, as she had no other choice in the matter. More on that later. Anyway, she tries to win over V to her side, as she thinks resistance is futile. V refuses, and they fight. Then she's unceremoniously booted out of the episode, and comes back in the end credits, showing her repairing the space pod she destroyed. With all that, there's a lot to unpack, so let's dive into why I think Jay's actions make sense within the show proper. First, we know Tessa, one of Jay's only friends. Why would she be on the same team as her best friend's murderer? Well, she had no choice in the matter. I said this earlier, but I highly doubt Jay had any free will until Earth was gone. There is only one line that kinda ruins this point, where she says to V,
Rescinded! So here I thought you stepped it up after. I never needed either of you.
But in N's flashback N, V, and J are under the solver's control. Anyway, with all humanity gone, Tessa long dead, and Sin having admin rights over J, she had two choices. Either believe Sin, and accept her deal of wiping out Copper 9, with freedom as the reward, or resist, and get possessed by Sin, and do the same job regardless. She was in the belly of the beast, and had no way out. So, she made the deal with Sin. She told the deal to V, and they both followed it. Also, I want to talk about the scene in the 6th episode, where Tessa said to Jay to mind her ship. Lots of people, myself included, thought this was Jay thinking that it wouldn't be like Tessa to resort to destroying the planet and fleeing without even trying. What I actually think the scene was, is Jay realizing that Sin isn't holding her end of the deal. Sin said Jay that her, N and V would be free to live on Copper 9 after all was said and done with. So, blowing up the planet, means the thing they worked so hard to achieve, has been lost forever. They were supposed to be free on Copper 9, but Sin had other plans in mind. But Jay had no power to leave. Her admin rights are under the solver. So all she could do is obey, or get possessed. And that is why she was so loyal to Sin. Rebellion would only make Sin either possess her, or throw her away for being disloyal. She obviously cared for V, as she didn't want V to be left at Sin's hands after failing to defeat her. She did try to reason with V, saying she can't escape her fate in Sin's hands. You can't even die in peace without being brought back to do the same job all over again. So, why even try to fight? She made a logical choice. Why fight when the fight is useless? Fighting her would only bring on more pain to her and the others. As for Jay's future, I feel she isolated herself. Tessa is dead, and she pushed away V, she has probably left to sulk by herself. She could either be repairing the space pod, as a project to keep her mind occupied, so she doesn't have to think about everything that happened. It's either that, or she's going to use the pod to leave Copper 9, to start a new life, maybe turn over a new leaf, find a pocket of humanity still around, or something. There are a few paths Jay could take in some kind of continuation story. I've had some thoughts about how I'd go about doing a fan story on how B would find Jay, and convince her to come back to the worker colony, and how to further expand on B and Jay's relationship, and past together, like how Jay reacted to Tessa's death and humanity's demise, and how Jay decided to team up with Sin. Nothing came to fruition, as I can draw, and I think I could make a fan comic, but I have no experience with digital art, beyond using a cursor, nor do I have a drawing tablet, or program to draw. I may make a fanfic, so let me know if you want that. Now, for my gripes with Jay's handling in the show's run. Everything I said, to show how it's good, is mostly just speculation. Heavily implied but not confirmed, and even still could be debated in some ways. They could have done small changes to make this flow better, and to make my points obvious, so the average Joe can get it, and not a nerd with too much free time to piece it all together. But alas, no. And this outcome isn't even my preferred one, even if I do think it works well. I still wanted Jay to not know it's Sin, until she saw who was in the spacesuit, then go ballistic on Sin. It would have made for a great way to redeem Jay's character, and give her a satisfying end to her story. But that's what could have been. I still feel little needed to be changed to have Jay not know it's Sin inside the spacesuit, except for some obvious dialogue changes, and Jay of course not being in the final fight against the main cast of course. But it sadly wasn't to be. So, to conclude, Jay I think has a fascinating story the more you think about it. A story with a pretty tragic end, as she banishes herself from being with the others. Now that the show is over, if any supplementary media, like a comic or something, I hope it will dive a bit more into Jay's motives, and reasons. But if this is all we have, I'm cool with it. Although what they went with isn't my favorite direction for Jay's character, and could have been executed far better, I really still like Jay for who she is. And her story is very interesting. My opinions and theories are not concrete info, so if you have any other ideas on Jay's character, or argue that I'm an idiot that looks way too deep into the funny robot show, please leave your thoughts in the comments below. See ya next time.